What do the scales of the white-lipped snake gleam for? To what speed can the black mamba accelerate? Can snakes hunt in groups? How does the yellow-bellied sea snake forage for food? Watch until the end and you'll know everything. In today's episode, you'll see the rarest, most dangerous, and most unusual snakes. And we'll start with one unusual photo. If the source is to be trusted, it was obtained during an expedition in the Sahara. I'll tell you right away, no one knows how true it is. Yes, some scientists have guessed that such snakes with multiple limbs may exist. To make them look so unique, do you think this picture can be real, or are we just being deceived? Personally, I don't know what to think. On the one hand, the picture has been checked for Photoshop. On the other hand, if such a snake really exists, why does it need all those extra legs? Anyway, if you have an opinion on this, be sure to share it in the comments. Well, we're going to move on because there's a black mamba waiting for us. The same poisonous creeper from Africa that many people have heard of. Not everyone knows, but it smiles all the time, and it's not black at all. First things first. Let's start with the fact that the length of the snake can easily exceed 10 feet. Because of that, the black mamba is considered the second largest venomous snake. First place, if anything, is occupied by the king cobra. The second important nuance is that in no case should you be sold on her smile. Because of the characteristic cut of the mouth, the snake always looks like it's smiling, although the black mamba has nothing to do with the manifestation of emotions. However, something tells me hardly anyone could think that this snake is in a positive mood. After all, its smile looks at least vicious. Like most snakes, the black mamba is not particularly eager to contact a person. When meeting someone, it tries to quickly hide or conversely remain motionless so that she blends in with the environment. However, if something goes wrong, the black mamba immediately justifies all the worst rumors. It attacks suddenly and violently. For humans, the probability of death without immediate antidote is 100%. In addition, the black mamba is a day snake, so you can encounter it more often than we would like. If any of you think that it's easy to spot it because the reptile is diurnal, know that it doesn't work that way. Due to its dark olive or grayish-brown coloration, the reptile is reliably camouflaged among trees or shrubby vegetation. And many of you have probably now caught the brain lag. How can it be dark olive-colored? The mamba is black, so its coloring must be black. But no, it gets its name from the black ink-like coloring on the inside of its mouth. How do scientists manage to study all this? The snake is, by the way, also very fast. If you believe the Guinness Book of World Records, the black mamba may be the fastest snake in the world, and at short distances develops a speed of up to 12 miles per hour. Yellow-bellied sea snake. This is the name of our next guest. It's not at all as famous as the black mamba. Nevertheless, it's definitely worth your attention because it's not every day that you meet a snake that always lives underwater and uses itself as bait. Unlike other snakes, the yellow-bellied snake does not have the ability to attack stealthily. It has nowhere to hide because the bright coloration rains on its parade. For us humans, it's very beautiful. In the world of snakes, on the contrary, it's like a white crow. But the snake did not get upset and made use of its wit. It started to use the rule, who seeks, he will always find. Being on the surface of the water, the yellow-bellied snake stops any motor activity and drifts in the middle of the ocean. It swims with the current. In their turn, the fish that swim around are not so smart, and in some places even, frankly, stupid. At the sight of this motionless entity, peacefully going with the stream, they swim by without a second thought and not a bit worried. That's when the snake becomes active, making a sharp lunge and capturing the enemy in its tenacious jaws. Usually one bite is enough because then all the rest of the work is done by the venom. The toxin of this sea snake can also be dangerous for humans. However, fortunately for us, the yellow-bellied sea snake is usually lenient to us. Cuban boa. I don't think we need to say where our next guest lives. However, it's worth specifying that the length of this handsome snake can reach as much as 15 feet. However, the main feature of these snakes is not even in their amazing length. If you believe scientists, the Cuban boa is one of the few snakes that can unite with their fellow snakes for the sake of joint hunting. That's not how it usually works in the crawling world. Two snakes can be hunting the same prey and not even know it. As soon as they meet, a battle will break out between them. In the case of Cuban boas, they join forces and share the prey equally. In short, the rodent and bats in Cuba are clearly out of luck. The latter, by the way, are the unluckiest creatures. It's believed that bats are their most important and desirable enemies. The Cuban boas are ready to consume them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tentacled snake. This is the name of the next species of snake we're going to talk about. Going a little ahead, this is one of the most unusual crawlers I've ever encountered. Apparently, the aquatic lifestyle has taken its toll. So it's believed that the tentacled snake almost never leaves the water. It feeds on fish with its unusual trick that helps it – scaly tentacles. These creepy outgrowths on the muzzle need it for orientation in murky water. And although they look cheesy, it's with their help that the tentacled snake became the main predator in the area. As I think, the reptile has already tried all possible fish. To start fishing, the serpent clings to something with its tail and meditates in the poker pose, the J pose. The creatures that swim by seriously think it's just vegetation. After all, camouflage coloration and unusual body shape do their job. And by the way, our snake's camouflage is not simple. For greater effect, it breeds different algae on its body. First of all, they serve as camouflage, and secondly, as protection from parasites. As soon as the plan works and the enemy is within reach of the tentacled snake, it'll be given the green light to attack. Only this attack will be unusual. The reptile realizes that fish need thousandths of a second to slip away from an attack on reflex. For this reason, the snake attacks not the head, but the tail, and makes the fish rush not away from the predator, but on the contrary, right into his mouth. Such a hunt ends successfully in almost 80% of cases. Misses occur only when the fish does not act according to reflexes. Round Island Boa. The alternative name for our next guest is the Round Island boa. It's a non-venomous crawler considered one of the rarest snakes in the world. It can change color and also has a double jaw. Classically, I propose that first things come first. So this snake is distributed exclusively on the small Mauritian island of Ile Ronde, also known as Round Island. This boa used to live in the rainforest and palm savanna. However, as man brought goats and rabbits to the island, almost all of their native areas for life were destroyed. In the past, by the way, the same snake lived on the island of Mauritius, but by the 1800th year, it had died out because people accidentally brought rats. The length of the body of the snake, from 3.5 feet to 5 feet, it's active mainly at night, eating small endemic lizards, as well as chicks of seabirds. It seems that since the snake leads a nocturnal lifestyle, it doesn't matter what color it has, except that the boa has a different opinion on the matter. During the day in the sunlight, reptiles can boast a graceful black-spotted coloration, and at night their color changes to gray-white. Scientists believe that the color change is responsible for the special polychromatic skin cells. At the same time, all this is so poorly understood that it makes no sense to speak more specifically. It's assumed that a certain hormone is responsible for the change of color. The hormone changes the concentration of black pigment melanin in skin cells. Melanin, in turn, affects the color. The more of this substance in the cell, the blacker it'll look. Thus, the snake, intentionally or not, can control the color of its skin and blend in with its environment much more successfully. Also, cold-blooded animals are said to change coloration to keep warm as well. They themselves do not produce heat, and black is known to attract light and, consequently, heat. The second, no less amazing feature of these snakes is, of course, their jaws. Many have seen how reptiles open their jaws to all 180 degrees. Only the force of the bite at such an arrangement is unlikely to be large. If the enemy isn't dead, holding him will be a problem. Do you know how to solve this problem? Over the course of evolution, the snake doubled its upper jaw. The result is that the tip of its snout, can safely move independently of the entire upper jaw. That's what makes fighting prey a little easier. Malagasy leaf-nosed snake. And this, as you can imagine, is endemic to Madagascar with a body length of up to 6.5 feet. It's a nosy and quite funny representative of reptiles, which just loves to pretend to be a branch. The snake looks quite colorful. Firstly, it does not have the smallest length. Secondly, it's provided with a camouflage coloration. In particular, this Malagasy leaf-nosed snake is excellent at hiding its nose, camouflaging it under a leaf. The sex of these snakes can easily be determined by their nose. Males have them long and sharp, whereas females a jagged one like a saw. Despite the real weapon instead of a nose, these snakes are not accustomed to get into conflict. They crawl somewhere on the branches, not too high, hang down their heads, and hang quietly. And surprisingly, they spend almost the whole day in this mode. At the same time, we cannot say that it harms them. Rather, on the contrary, such a passive way of life is only in their favor. In this case, it spends a minimum of energy and therefore can eat less often. In addition, the prey itself comes to its teeth. Mice, birds, lizards, any small creatures that are interested in the fruit on the trees immediately go on an exclusive tour of the digestive tract of the snake. With the help of poison fangs, it will defeat any small prey. It's lucky it can't use them to kill a man, otherwise it's really impossible to notice the snake somewhere among branches because of its brown coloring. The Asian vine snake, which inhabits the tropical forests of Southeast Asia, is another reptile that's very hard to find. Despite a decent length of 6.5 feet, its body is incredibly narrow, so the snake is more like some liana wrapped around a branch. By the way, it's because of this that the crawler was given its name. Despite the bright color, Asian vine snake leads a diurnal lifestyle and spends almost all its time in the trees. Particular attention is attracted by its elongated muzzle, decorated with large oval eyes and horizontal pupils. Moreover, such a pupil is not found in all species of tree snakes. The Asian vine snakes are the owners of sharp binocular vision, thanks to which they can determine the exact distance to the prey. In the meantime, prey. Those are birds, tree frogs, lizards, and rarely ground rodents. When they engage in battle, the poison helps the snakes. However, it's not dangerous for humans. Invisible by night and sparkling by day is exactly what can be said about our next guest, called the white-lipped python. Let me start by saying that this snake is truly beautiful. You just look at how marvelously it shimmers. I think if it lived near people, we'd be punning it and trying to take it home. Not surprisingly, the crawler has chosen to settle where there's less human attention, in the jungles of Indonesia. White-lipped python tries to avoid the light, and at night he even changes into an inconspicuous black and yellow suit. I do not recommend anyone pestering the python with advice or questions. After just one wrong movement, the snake will fly towards the creature that annoyed it. But if a person still manages to lure the crawler into the light, the reptile will be transformed, just like Cinderella, but in reverse. In daytime, the white goose python will shine with the brightest colors. A stylish neon suit will make him the king of any party. I don't know why it needs this in the jungle. It's Mother Nature that decided to give it such a property. Fortunately, scientists were able to explain this natural anomaly. They said that the scales, located in a special way, did not only transform the python into a fashionista, but also dispersed the dim nightlight. And they do it so well that the snake turns into a blurred shadow, almost invisible even to creatures with night vision. It's until the last moment that small rodents won't notice the white-lipped python crawling towards them. Javan file snake. Remember, today we've already had a snake that grew algae. Well, the Javan file snake has exactly the same property. In addition, it's easily distinguished by its heavy body and quadrangular head. This snake spends its entire life in water and is known in the scientific world for its laziness. Moving extremely slowly, the snake can stay on the bottom for long periods of time. When there's a shortage of oxygen, it's enough to put nostrils out of the water located at the top of the snout. On those rare occasions when the Javan file snake makes it to land, It slowly wriggles and crawls along the riverbank. I'm sure some people wouldn't even recognize it as a snake from the outside. It looks more like an elephant's trunk that's magically separated from its body. Porcupine. In contrast to a snake predator, a porcupine is just a rodent that's not much likely to give a worthy response. Possibly many people think like that who are not well acquainted with a porcupine. Many snakes think the same as well. As a result, they hunt for porcupines and then regret it. We shouldn't forget that a porcupine is a thorny rodent. Some species of the porcupines have needles of different sizes and density. Anyway, all of them are quite dangerous. For example, when a snake attacked a porcupine, the animal began to put its needles for the reptile to come across them. Snake regretted attacking such a thorny being. We know no hunting is worth being prickled all over. Anyway, it was lucky. Some snakes struggle until the end, which is either caused by hunger or just their silliness, and manage to devour a porcupine whole. Of course, the porcupine dies as a result. At the same time, the snake perishes as well, and not in the best way. A porcupine thrusts reptiles' organs from the inside and the animal dies. This is what awaits stupid pythons capable of devouring even the biggest porcupine in their family. It has the sharpest and longest needles of all. At times, they can reach up to 40 centimeters long. This is exactly not the best meal for any snake and predator as a whole. Okay, we can see how it's going with the porcupines. They're big enough, they have huge, sharp needles. This way it's silly to attack these beings and moreover eat them. What about the smaller hedgehogs? Maybe, at least with them, the snake can finish them off without problems and then eat them. No way! The hedgehog will not give itself to a snake. Even though its needles aren't as long and deadly as a porcupine, it's deadly to it. However, it's another problem. Considering that the porcupines must just defend themselves, they put their needles to their opponents and want the snake to leave them alone. Hedgehogs can easily finish off a snake. That sounds incredible when you look at these nice and cute beings, but it's a fact. Despite all the stereotypes, the hedgehogs are rather powerful, dangerous, and voracious animals. They do not eat fruits with berries, but insects, slugs, and worms, as well as small snakes. In case of a scramble, the hedgehog tends to put its needles to the opposer like the porcupine. This way, it will make a snake to come across them, whereas the snake gets weak and tired. When the reptile's finally weakened, the hedgehog will have nothing to do but just kill it. Even if the snake manages to strike a sniper blow to the hedgehog with its poisonous teeth somewhere between its needles, there will be no guarantee that the hedgehog perishes. Hedgehogs are resistant to poison of many snakes, so those are reptiles that are afraid of them and do that correctly. Mongoose. Anyway, most of all, they're afraid of this animal. A hedgehog comes into battle with a snake only to defend itself. Such cases are principally rare. Hedgehogs prefer to do their job and not attack the snakes. As for the mongoose, a scramble with a snake is literally the main task in life. Mongoose is an animal that can defeat any poisonous snake without any problems. Mongooses regularly fight against the snakes and almost always win. Their nature provided them with anything possible necessary to prevail against the snakes. As well as that in hedgehogs, they're resistant against snakes' poison. It's even more developed than in the thorny creatures. Even a bite of the queen cobra kills a mongoose at once. What's more, it's necessary to reach the skin of the animal. The thing is that when it fights, its fur stands on end, so it becomes more difficult for a snake to hit the target. Secondly, snakes attack very quickly, but mongooses are famous for their response and hardiness. The snakes attack very quickly, but the mongooses avoid the attacks even quicker. The snake can make a series of insults but stands no chance to hit the mongoose. As a result, the snake gets tired, whereas for a mongoose it may be enough to make one bite or capture to neutralize the snake. The small predator estimates its opposer and movements, catches the one and punishes it. The mongoose blocks the snake's jaw to prevent it from biting, scratches the opposer, and gnaws into its neck. All this takes place almost instantaneously and simultaneously. It's not surprising that snakes are afraid of mongooses, despite that they continue fighting against them, hoping to win by miracle. Birds. Possibly these snakes are more afraid of birds. Many feathered creatures pose a threat to the snakes. In contrast to the mongoose, they can see in a distance. The birds fly over the snakes and fall on them, putting them off their guard. At times, the reptiles can do nothing against. Some of the most dangerous birds are eagles. These predators pose a principal threat for many animals, without exception to the snakes. Due to a sharp sight and developed hunting skills, the eagles locate a snake, pick it, and grab. They have a powerful grip. The eagles know that the main thing is to hold the head of the snake to prevent it from biting. After suppressing snake's movement, the eagle eats it without difficulty, in many cases alive. Crows and magpies are another threat to the snakes. Those are the ravens the snakes are especially afraid of. These birds bug them severely. They can just follow and peck. Anyway, they act without limits, as the raven can finish off the snake if it wishes. These birds are famous for their intelligence no snakes can dream about. That's what predisposes a lot in the world of animals. Far not each snake can defeat a smart crow. The magpies are more likely to chase away the snakes, not attack them to damage them. There have been cases when magpies turn away snakes from their own territory. The bird can follow a snake for a long time, slightly pecking it to prevent it from moving or even flop. This will last until the reptile moves away as long as possible. If the snake doesn't understand any hints, the bird can bite it with more power. If the snake's not that big, a magpie can eat it. Even cuckoos are dangerous for the snakes. However, not all of them. Consider the Californian cuckoo. Despite the fact that it's not that big, it's an opposer from the hell for many snakes, in particular rattlesnakes. This cuckoo is not a good flyer, but it can run quickly, even quicker than a snake can creep. The bird catches the snake off its guards and starts to exhaust it. It uses its wings as a shield. The snake hits against it but does it without any success, but doesn't poison the bird. Soon after that, the snake gets tired. That leads the feathered monster to finish it off brutally. Even more brutally does the secretary bird, another strong enemy for a snake. This bird is very big. That's why it's not comfortable for it to peck snakes. In contrast to its other feathered relatives, the secretary beats the snake with its feet. At the sidelines, it looks like the bird tramples the reptile. As a whole, it's true. According to the sizes of the birds, it's not surprising that at times it's enough to strike a couple of blows to kill the snake. In a nutshell, the snakes have a lot of feathered opposers that can defeat them. Even the peacocks are among them. Look, these beautiful birds eat snakes. Let them be not that big, but anyway, this way the reptiles can do nothing about it. Back to land animals. Not only mongooses or any other thorny creatures can harm a snake, these reptiles are also threatened by the martens. This is a family of mammals. They almost all look very cute. They're also small. So at a first glance, you would never think these creatures pose some kind of threat. However, the main thing to know and remember is that the martens are predators, and they're not as down-to-earth as it may seem. Consider the ferrets. It's a very cute creature, isn't it? But just look at the way it deals with a snake. He doesn't let it escape to its hiding place and reaches its final goal. The weasels and minks are able to defeat the snakes as well. They take up arms with the crawlers, fight to the death, and often win. But the most dangerous of the martens is, of course, the honey badger. It's a completely reckless and fearless predator that can attack anyone. As far as snakes are concerned, it doesn't matter to him whether it faces a python or someone venomous. The honey badger is capable of defeating any snake. He has the toughest skin, is hard to bite through, sharp teeth with claws that can tear apart any snake, and a powerful immunity to a wide variety of poisons. Even if a snake bites a honey badger and it falls down, closing its eyes, that doesn't mean it's dead. Soon the poison breaks up in its body, and in a couple of hours that snake may die if it didn't manage to creep away as far as possible. Pigs and boars. These hoofed creatures are also far from being as uncomplicated as they seem. It would seem that they're rather clumsy, somewhat lazy, and have no predatory nature at all. Nevertheless, snakes should stay away from them. Reptiles are unlikely to be able to do anything significant to a pig or a boar. These animals are fat and stout built. There's a lot of fat and few blood vessels on their flanks. This is where snakes often aim. Because of this, the snake venom doesn't have time to properly spread in the body and the pig can survive. At the same time, it can take revenge on the offender. One powerful blow with a hoof is enough to knock out or kill the snake. It's not uncommon for pigs to trample snakes, and considering the pigs and boars are omnivorous animals, it will not be a problem for them to eat the snake. anaconda is one of the largest snakes on our planet, and meeting it always causes true emotions, starting from delight to horror. Keep watching to see rare anaconda shots captured on camera. Traffic regulator. The snake just decided to regulate traffic on the road. You know, it did it very well. At least no one around was in a hurry to go around it, and all the people observed the speed limit. A group of people was driving 2 cars off-road. Those in the front were the first to notice the snake lying on the roadside. It looked sad, without any energy at all. But as soon as the car got close to it, the snake jumped on it and tried to bite it. Maybe it's not a sign of aggression, but just defense. Because when the driver backed up and let the other car go forward, the snake did the same thing to it. It probably thought that people might attack it, and that's why it behaved that way. What do you think is down there on the bottom right? Maybe some kind of hose or a giant stick? No, it's not as simple as it looks. It's a giant anaconda that fell down the drain. Of course, the snake couldn't get out on its own. The current was too strong. It had to rely on the outside help, and it came to it. Kind people came to help the anaconda with a big box in which it was planned to put the snake. However, the snake didn't realize it, and that's why it behaved so aggressively. Thankfully, the men had enough experience to deal with it quickly without hurting the animal. The following clip is dedicated to all those who did not believe in the existence of Titanoboa. In a Brazilian river, people filmed this long, massive snake that stretched almost the entire width of the river. Of course, this creature was more than 16 feet long, which means that it wasn't the anaconda, which is familiar to all of us. That leaves only Titanoboa as an option, the ancient big creature which was famous for its colossal size. Do you think the horror of the past can still be alive today? Or is this just a sophisticated fake? Write in the comments, what do you think about it? Did I allow you to shoot me? That's probably what the snake said to the author of this video. And you know, I understand it totally. It's very frustrating when someone shoots you for their content without consent. However, I don't react the way the snake did, but I should. I wonder if this video is real and the anaconda purposely jumped on the cameraman at the last moment. Or is the video staged? What do you think? You know, one time you watch a moment featuring anacondas and you think that these creatures are stupid. Another time you watch them and you start to think they're intelligent. They understand a lot of things, and they do things for a reason. This video caused me the latter feelings, because now you'll see everything. People were boating on a river in Brazil, and they happened to see an anaconda hiding in a tree. It was very calm, it showed no emotion at all. It sat like this on the tree, curled up in a ball and watched the people as if seeing them off. Well, these giant anacondas are beyond comprehension, but let's leave them alone. I suggest we check out some other snake moments now. They're worth seeing too. Don't disturb it. A swimming pool, warm weather, lights, night. What could be more romantic and pleasant than such an atmosphere? It seems to me that these are just perfect conditions to take a dip in the water and then lie down and think about something of your own. And it's not only humans who realize this. A snake has decided to do it too. So far, it's at the stage of bathing in the pool, but people do not let it do it in peace. They immediately get their cameras, shoot something, try to disturb the snake. When, if not at night, when should the snake do it then? A gift from heaven. That's what happens when you're expecting nothing and no one, and a surprise falls right on your head. Well, it wasn't really a surprise, it was more like problems falling on their heads. People were in their house for a long time and couldn't understand what kind of strange sounds were coming from their attic. At one point they noticed a tail and immediately realized what was wrong. They called a snake removal service and they quickly began to eliminate the threat. They got the snake out. It was hiding exactly where the tenants thought it would be. Everything seems fine, except I'm worried about what they're going to do with the ceiling. If you showed this footage of the inside of the house to someone, they might think that there was some kind of fight, robbery, major renovation, or room-destroying video being filmed. But in reality, it's much simpler than that. It's a matter of the tail of one giant snake that snuck inside the house and started crushing everything it could reach. Yes, of course, it did it not on purpose, but because of too large size. But this does not relieve the snake of responsibility. The poor girls who live in that apartment didn't know what to do. The slithering creature literally evicted them until a snake removal service arrived there. If you were worried about the ending, everything ended well. The snake did not have time to destroy anything valuable. It was caught and, without causing harm, placed inside a bag in which it was later delivered back to its native environment, away from the homes of ordinary citizens. open it. I need to get there urgently. This is how people who are in a hurry to visit the restroom but someone's already sitting in it may shout. However, sometimes it's better not to hurry and rush anyone, because behind the door there may not be a person at all, but for example, such a huge, no, even anomal snake. How did it end up in the restroom? And why was the door closed? Did the snake really learn to close it behind it? It seems to me that after such an encounter, whoever was in such a hurry to go to the restroom doesn't want to go there at all, if you know what I mean. I think I finally figured out how that snake could have ended up in people's restroom. It snuck into the house through a pipe. Here, look, another creeping creature that wanted to break into someone's house without warning was caught by a snake removal service. I wonder if there's any way to deal with this kind of problem. Maybe put some guard inside the toilet or around the pipe. Well, or pour something inside to scare snakes away. If you have your own ideas about this, be sure to share them in the comments. A kite is something kids love to play with. What's more, adults don't mind flying it at all. Walking along the streets of the Philippines, people noticed something in the sky that looked like a kite. And then it dawned on them. It wasn't a toy at all, but a full-fledged and real snake that magically climbed up a pole and hung on the wires. I couldn't believe that snakes could get that high before. And now I don't even know how to escape them in case of emergency. They'll get you anywhere. Wow. While I was telling you all that, a huge snake fell to the ground from a height. Luckily, it survived, but it was definitely a nerve-wracking experience. Look, I think I figured out how snakes climb electrical wires. Just take a look at this video. The snake first climbed up a tree, crawled across it to the very top, and then demonstrated its gymnastic and acrobatic skills to those around it. I wonder why these creatures do such things. Do the wires serve as a shortcut for them to a new tree? Or do they think they have a better view from there and can hunt faster and more efficiently? What do you think? Make yourself at home. At the beginning of the video, it's clear that the man is not very happy to encounter the snake, which got into his house through the door and started looking around for something to do. But perhaps it wasn't like that at all, and the man was running not out of fear but out of joy. He wanted to bring the snake some tasty food as soon as possible to show his hospitality. Be that as it may, the second encounter between the man and the snake did not take place. The latter changed its mind about resting in the house, turned around and slithered away on its own business. Calmness. I wonder if the people on that train were purposely not reacting to the snake so it wouldn't bother them. Or is it their local mascot? I just don't quite understand how you can be in the same room with a snake, stand just a few feet away from it, and be as cool as a cucumber. Either there's something wrong with these people or I have some kind of misconception about snakes. The next video started more than positively. It was night outside. The wind hardly touched the green grass outside the house and everything was very calm inside. But at one point, this idyll was broken by a random, creeping, impudent creature that wanted to sneak inside. Fortunately, the doors and windows were securely closed and the plan failed. But the cameraman still managed to capture the criminal on camera. Keep in mind, if this sly face is near you, you can expect anything from it. Anaconda and caiman. Both of these beasts are famous for their strength in the animal world. One has the cruel grip, which does not forgive mistakes of opponents, and the other can strangle absolutely any opponent because its torso, as if it tends to infinity in terms of length. But one day in Brazil, people came across something unusual. Both of these creatures became hostages of the situation. It's not known which one attacked first, but as a result, they took each other in their grasp. The crocodile grabbed the snake's head with its jaws and was by no means letting it go. The snake, on the other hand, wrapped itself around it, immobilized its limbs, and grabbed its torso a little. In the end, the whole thing turned into a wearing down process. The one which would lose its nerves and finally decide to move and do something will probably lose the fight. By the way, write in the comments, which animal do you think will emerge victorious from this battle? My money's on the crocodile. To be honest, I have no idea how the situation in the following video even became real. The thing is that this happened in some kind of zoo, where the enclosures with animals are fenced and no outsider can enter them. However, the hungry python, which obviously lacked food and attention from the zoo staff, found a loophole, and like in the movies, where they escaped from prison, made a tunnel into the next cell. Knowing the schedule of the guards, it, like a true master of its craft, snuck up to the monkeys unnoticed and pinched one of them by the side. Well, as you can see, this very pinch was fatal for the monkey. No matter how hard the congeners tried to scare off the creeping creatures with their screams, they didn't succeed. It's a pity the animals couldn't have realized that as a whole group, they would have clearly been stronger than one snake. If you see snake battles for the first time and now think that they attack only weak enemies, you're deeply mistaken. They have battles even with each other. So in this video, you can see the battle between the king snake and the rat snake. The latter is a true underdog due to a variety of factors. These include size, dexterity, bite force, and more. Nevertheless, the way the king snake carefully and methodically deals with eating the relative snake is really fascinating. It does it without any effort, just like a real master demonstrates its skills in the fight against the opponent that made a fatal mistake. Truth be told, however, it's also worth noting the rat snake's struggle for life. I thought it had said goodbye to life a long time ago. But this little creature fought until the very end, until 99% of its torso was consumed by the king member of the snakes. I'm sure if the rat snake had faced one of the traps of the movie Saw, it would have definitely shown its will to live to the fullest and stayed alive. By the way, hit the like button if you've also seen at least one movie from the franchise. A gift from the sky. Usually when people expect something to fall from the sky, they expect money or some other material possessions. In this case, however, something more interesting happened. A girl was sitting on her porch when suddenly a real snake landed on her. The creeping one landed literally a couple of feet away from the girl, who immediately jumped up and didn't know what to do. That can't be said about the snake, quickly oriented in space and rushed into the house. Hopefully there's another way out and the snake was planning to get out through it, because I don't know how the girl's gonna find the snake in her house. I think the search would look like this. This snake was hiding in a bag with things, and it wouldn't be easy to find it. I'm sure some of you, even after watching the video, didn't understand where the snake was here. There it is, from above. Have you noticed it? But if suddenly, among my viewers, there are those who think that snakes are something absolutely not scary and harmless, just watch this video. A group of friends were driving towards their country house and encountered a snake in the middle of the road. No one was going to crush it, of course. People only wanted to scare it a little, so that it crawled away into the bushes, at least for a minute. But one of the friends, as is usually the case, decided to be the bravest. He approached the snake from behind and started playing with it as if he'd been taming these creatures all his life. But the first dangerous moment proved that it was all just a show. The snake didn't even bite him, and he immediately dropped it and ran away. I'm sure he'll remember that fright for a long time. Since he likes snakes so much, maybe he should just get some small snakes to start with. Here, take a look at this. This little creature seems completely harmless. Even though it crawled into the car completely by accident, people encountering the snake for the first time didn't panic. The man pressed his feet to the side and waited for his spouse to find a right bag. Then they opened the door, took the snake by the tail, and carefully placed it in the bag. Now, it would definitely not get out of there, and it would ride with them to the animal care center without any surprises. Let them figure out where it should be released. A typical day in Toronto. Often, when entering the subway, buses, or any other public transport, one may see notices that animals are not allowed there, especially if they're large and potentially dangerous. This applies to dogs, as they're the most popular pets in people. But what would you say if, for example, a man with a snake rides the subway? Will you also confront him, or is he allowed to do that? Frankly speaking, if I were a conductor, I'd be afraid to even approach him. Though I know in my heart of hearts that the snake is probably tame and obedient. Sneaked up unnoticed. On the one hand, living somewhere in the countryside where you can walk to the forest is great. You got some fresh air, a place to walk, but on the other hand, there's a constant chance that you can encounter some wild creature, and it'd be fine if it were some wolves. They don't live near houses, but snakes can always come to visit you, just like the people from this video. So what do you do if that happens? A mother and her 3 children were minding their own business and didn't even notice the big creature sneaking in. Luckily for them, the snake was not aggressive. It probably just got lost. Nevertheless, it still forced the people to leave their own home and wait for the help of braver guys. Hide and seek. Besides houses, snakes have another favorite spot that all car enthusiasts know about. As you may have guessed, I'm talking about the hood. It's under it that snakes can hide for hours. It's warm, there's no sun, it's dry enough. It's like some kind of paradise for snakes. Too bad they don't realize that if the car starts, they won't have a way out of there. That's why drivers have to do things like this video. It's lucky that the girl managed to grab the snake's tail and it couldn't hurt her. Everything is always known in comparison. Everyone knows this saying, and I'm sure everyone agrees with it. But what about our case? Does it fit the general rule? On the one hand, we see fearful but persistent snakes ready to get into a car or a house. On the other hand, we see very cute creeping creatures resting on people's hands. It's as if these creatures will not hurt a fly. But we've all seen those clips on the internet where they swallow small and large animals alive. In short, write in the comments, how do you feel about these creatures? Do you find them cute? Or are they animals that should be avoided at all costs? Plans are canceled. What excuses have you come up with when you were late for school, work, or a meeting? I'm sure the theories about a broken elevator or traffic jam are already outdated. Here's a fresh one for you. Say you just stepped out onto your porch when suddenly a giant and venomous snake blocked your path. You had no choice but to go home. After all, life and your own health are more important than anything else. Why not? I think this excuse will definitely work. After all, this is exactly the situation that happened to the girl in this video. Besides, the snake in her case was far from the largest, and it probably wasn't venomous either. However, this lady who went outside didn't even flinch at the sight of the snake. The creeping creature didn't cause her absolutely any emotion, which personally surprised me a lot. I wonder how much confidence, strength, and calmness are in this fragile girl. Oh no, I guess I was wrong. She just didn't see the snake. So she stepped over it so easily and effortlessly. I can already imagine the hysteria if she accidentally stepped on the body of the creeping creature. Knock knock. As you and I have learned today, snakes love to get into someone else's space. But what happened in this video went beyond all boundaries. The creeping creature didn't just seize the moment and enter the house unintentionally. It hung over the door on purpose and waited for the moment to get inside. The little creature had a pretty working plan, which is nothing short of amazing. Fortunately, there was a surveillance camera in front of the door which noticed the movement and showed the owners this brazen snake. That's how people live in private houses near forests and meadows. There's no end of problems. What is fear? The girl in the following video definitely doesn't know the answer to this question because she sits calmly next to several huge pythons and doesn't worry about it. Yes, these snakes are not venomous, but as you know, they often bite people in self-defense. Their saliva is not capable of sending people to kingdom come, but it can definitely cause allergies or a number of irritations. By the way, do you want to be even more horrified? There was an officially documented case in history when a 5-foot-long leopard was found in the body of a python. Decide for yourself whether it's good or bad, but there are a lot of such snakes, that is, pythons, in nature. After all, what do you expect from a snake that lays 100 eggs at a time? At the same time, almost any weather conditions are suitable for them. Thanks to a gift from nature, pythons are able to independently raise their body temperature by means of muscle contraction. The reptile is able to warm itself up to 9 to 18 degrees Fahrenheit above the environment. They're also great swimmers, being extremely skilled and intelligent predators. Often their tails act as a lure. When they wave it, they give the impression that it's not a tail at all, but some small prey. A bird or someone else rushes at it, when suddenly a python jumps out of an ambush and gets a hearty dinner without spending much effort on hunting. Road attack. You know, I never expected what happened in this video. Two motorcyclists were riding on the road, didn't touch anyone, and even didn't break the speed limit, as suddenly a snake jumped out on the road and almost bit one of the bikers. The snake didn't manage to bite anyone, but such behavior clearly makes you think about your safety on the road. It's worth wearing special anti-bite uniforms when you drive through such an unsafe area. Apparently, snakes even know how to make eyes at us. If they need to get somewhere, they either resort to decisive and active tactics, going straight ahead, Or on the contrary, they take their time and take off a human's guard, as in this video. The snake sits quietly, presses itself against the glass, and as if remotely says, "Let me into the house, owner. Let me warm up, have a little snack, and take a bath. I won't scare or bite anyone, I promise." We know these snakes and their tricks. The man was right not to fall for these tricks and just called a snake removal service. A professional arrived on the spot and caught the snake in a cage in a couple of minutes. Did you see, by the way, that when the snake realized that it was in trouble, it immediately began to slither away? However, it didn't have time to do it. Now it'll be taken away from people and released into the wild, where it will not cause trouble to anyone. And now I'll show you how snakes deal with their prey. Python versus crocodile. You may be surprised, but battles between these living creatures in the wild are not uncommon. For a crocodile, a snake can be an easy and tasty prey. But sometimes a snake doesn't mind eating a large reptile from warm countries either. In this video, which was shot by eyewitnesses, the main role was played by a giant albino python. Usually, I'm kindly envious of creatures with such an interesting color feature, but if I were this snake, I wouldn't be happy. It seems to me that this coloration makes it much more conspicuous and spoils its camouflage. However, the creeping creature proves me otherwise and easily catches the crocodile in its tenacious grip. The video shows the poor guy twitching its limb, but all its attempts to get out are in vain. At that moment, the crocodile was already a quarter of its body inside the snake, which meant there was no chance of escape. The only thing it had to hope for was that someone would come and scare the snake. In case you didn't know, when some predator shows up, snakes often spit out their prey in order to become more agile, lighter, and maneuverable. After all, why would you need food when you can become food yourself, right? How do they do it? Such thoughts came to mind as soon as I watched another video starring a snake. On it, the reptile was eating a frog that was still alive. Have you ever wondered how a snake opens its mouth so wide? Maybe it doesn't have any bones. Well, it may seem like there are no bones at all, but in fact, there are a lot of bones. Some snakes have up to 145 pairs of ribs attached to their flexible spine, but that's not even the point. It's all about the remarkable ability of snakes to digest their prey live. Inside their small intestine, the soft tissues and skeleton of a prey begin to break down. Then potent enzymes and acid come into play. The acidity in the snake's stomach exceeds that of humans by about 7 times. Next, what's left over moves to the colon, where it undergoes final digestion. Enzymes break down the soft tissues and skeleton of a prey within a few hours. If we're talking about larger prey, like the crocodile, it may take the snake about a week or even a month to digest it. But snakes don't always hunt small prey. Sometimes their diet includes much larger creatures, such as this deer. Of course, snakes are happy to eat something like this once every 2 weeks, but in practice, it's extremely difficult to catch it because of its large size and high speed. The only chance for the snake to get a deer is either to sneak up on it or to make a sharp lunge, camouflaged somewhere on the road. Let alone poor deer, which spend all their lives running away from someone. Even a kangaroo can be eaten by a snake, and there shouldn't be any question about weaker animals at all. Just look at such a big prey the snake is eating. There's a feeling that a little more and the snake will burst from greed. But somehow, magically, it manages to cram all its prey into its belly. Oh, I wish I could learn this skill and learn how to pack my stuff in a suitcase in the same cool and compact way. Python versus tiger. Gradually, the bar of opponents only raises. One might get the feeling that the next headline will be something like Python versus elephant. But don't worry, the tiger is probably the most dangerous animal that a snake can mess with. The fact is that these big cats are insanely strong fighters in one-on-one combat. They can defeat even a lion because of their solitary lifestyle. The kings of the jungle, on the contrary, always count on team play and attack by the whole pride. But that's not what we're talking about now. We're interested in the confrontation between a giant python and a hungry tiger. At first, it seemed to me that the snake had no chance of winning in such a duel. No matter how you look at it, the tiger will bite through its skin or even tear it to shreds with its sharp claws. However, something clearly went wrong with the big cat. It couldn't beat the python. On the contrary, at some point, the tiger relaxed its guard and fell into the trap of the reptile. The snake wrapped itself around its prey and began to tighten its grip as hard as possible. The reptile tried to deprive the tiger of all its vital forces. Still a mystery exactly how this story ended, so I suggest you use your imagination and write your version in the comments. Which animal do you think won? Something tells me that the snake knocked the living daylights out of that tiger. The king in action. I think those who are interested in the world of snakes have already guessed which snake I'm going to talk about. Yes, of course you're right, it's the king cobra, the very snake that can feed on other creeping reptiles, including extremely venomous ones. And if two such cobras claim one prey at once, then they'll begin to compare their size. The bigger one will take the winnings. The smaller one will have to immediately slither out of sight. It's also said that the king cobra has an excellent memory and is able to distinguish the one who caught it from all other people. So I wouldn't advise you to go looking for it, much less catch it. Otherwise, you'll pull the snake out of its native habitat and it will remind you of that someday. It knows that in the case of snakes, you always have to grab the head, and it did just that. I think the smaller reptile had no chance of escape. Sometimes they need help too. We looked at all kinds of videos, and in each of them the snakes seemed so strong, independent, clever, and agile. There's a feeling that a snake just physically cannot get into any trouble, but in fact this is not the case. For example, in this video, a snake had a fight with a monitor lizard. Even though the second one was small, something didn't work out for the reptile, and it ended up in the tenacious grip of the predator. I think the snake had no chance of escape at all. But then, just like a superhero from the movies, a man came to it. He picked up the fighting creatures and carried them to his side. There, he unhooked them and then dragged them to different corners. The man immediately forgot about the monitor lizard because it was safe and sound, but the snake needed help. To provide it, the rescuers placed the snake in a large jar in a clever and confident way and took it with them for examination. I wonder how surgeries and stuff like that happen in the case of snakes. Are they injected with some kind of a sedative, or maybe people put them in a place where they can't twirl? Write in the comments if you know the answer to this question, or have a cool guess. Remember how in the story about the king cobra I mentioned its incredible memory? It seems to me that other snakes also have a very good memory. The fact is that in the same area where the events from the past story took place, people found some brawlers. They were again a monitor lizard and a snake. And you know what the most interesting thing is? There's a chance that these are exactly the same animals which have already fought with each other. They tracked each other down, grew up, and arranged a rematch. The snake didn't like that it was considered weak and taken for treatment. However, the monitor lizard didn't care. It just wanted to eat. Well, monitor lizards can barely deal with snakes. Tigers are also inferior to them, let alone deer, frogs, and crocodiles. So what animal can deal with these creeping creatures? Turns out that domestic dogs can do it. Our favorite and loyal friends, which will never leave their owner in trouble. Don't you believe me? Then here's the video proof. This video shows a dog desperately defending its home and territory from an extremely venomous and aggressive snake. The fact is that the dog does it very confidently, deftly, and successfully. The snake doesn't have time to recover and focus on the dog as it gets bitten one more time. Can't tell you exactly how this video ended, but something tells me that with such an eagerness, the doggy didn't leave the snake a single chance for survival. This is what I call crawled in the wrong neighborhood. Fight on the road. The authors of the following video were driving somewhere on their way when suddenly someone blocked their way. It wasn't a giant cow or a group of ducklings crossing to the other side. It was a real fight between snakes. The two little ones were fighting as briskly and boldly as if they were 3 times bigger than they really were. You could feel the aggression and confidence in their every move. I mean it. I've never seen such fast and accurate dodges in my life. Maybe only in some movie, though. I wonder if anyone has emerged victorious from this battle, or did they part in peace? What do you think about this? Write in the comments. Is the gecko the main kryptonite of snakes? I don't know about you, but I keep hearing that if there are geckos in or near a house, there simply can't be any snakes in the area. Allegedly, snakes are afraid of them and try to crawl around 100 yards away. Wait, don't rush to buy these lizards for yourself. Turns out that all this was nothing more than a myth. Look at the fight these creatures got into, or rather, what a tangle they got into. It looks worse than wired headphones after they've been in your pocket for a couple of hours. I think that's enough dangerous snakes for today. Now I'll show you the funniest zoo animal moment. Of course, all kinds of tricks are great, but most primates and other animals at the zoo have to entertain themselves on their own. For example, they can jump on ropes and vines. However, not everyone's good at it. Still remember that raccoon dancer from the beginning of the episode that synchronized with the girl? Well, not only raccoons can catch the rhythm, but also bears. This animal decided to have fun with the children who came to visit it. It began to jump, and the children began to repeat after it. It was not possible to synchronize with all of them, but it was still an extraordinary moment. Although it was more sad than funny, because the bear probably wanted to get out of the enclosure and feel freedom. You've all seen sea lions and other seals. It seems like all they do is crawl around on their bellies all the time, but that's not quite true. Seals can stand up on their hind flippers and stretch out to their full height. Look how it happens. Here, the zoo employee decided to feed his charges, and two of them, the most agile ones, stood up on their flippers. Of course, sea lions can't stand without any support at all. As you can see, they're holding onto the rock wall so they don't fall, but even in this case it looks cool. It's also really cute. Looking at such footage, you even forget that sea lions are actually predators. You know what else looks cute? These rhinos named Lunga and Faith. These cubs have been together since birth and love each other so much that they even exchange kisses. No matter what anyone says, all cats are the same at heart. Whether it's a small kitten or a huge tiger, they all have similar behaviors. Look at this white tiger messing around with a box. It's trying to climb in it and make itself comfortable, like a real domestic cat. But this cat is too big and the box is too small for it, so the tiger just crushed it. By the way, do you know why cats are always trying to get into boxes, suitcases, and other such tight places? Scientists believe that this is due to the fact that cats like dark, cozy, and protected spaces. Almost all cats are solitary creatures that try to be away from people and even their congeners. A box is the perfect place to seclude themselves and hide from the world. At least, that's what cats think. Working at the zoo has its advantages. For example, you can see animals from angles that ordinary visitors never see them from. This is the view of a man working with giraffes. Once again, you're surprised how tall these animals are after all. And yet, most of the work at the zoo is quite dirty in the truest sense of the word, especially if you have to work with large animals like rhinos. There are no comments here, you just have to see it. That's all, guys. Which moment surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.